From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up! Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, proudly presented by Zaxby's. Indescribably good. I'm Aslan Hajavandi alongside Corey Clark. We work for Warchant.com, and man, I'm glad I get to work for Warchant.com because they're the ultimate Seminole sports source. You're missing out if you're not a member, but hey, use the promo code Warchant30. That gets you 30 free days of access. Try it. You will undoubtedly like it. I should say uncertainly. That's not good. You would undoubtedly like it, right? Corey, you're our grammarian. Is that a word?
Certainly? Is certainly a word? Or
Well,
undoubtedly? Undoubtedly is definitely a word.
Yeah, well, grammarian. Grammarian?
I think grammarian's probably a word.
Mater
if it
day
not,
or,
it should be.
Mater day or mater day?
Right. We can't get any of this stuff right.
How are you, Corey? This is the week. You're coming back to Tallahassee. We can maybe see. We can spot you out in the wild.
Yeah, man, it's going to be fun. It won't be for a few days, but yeah, I plan to venture back into the 850, make sure my house is still standing. That would be nice. And I guess bring in my trash can that I left out 6 weeks ago.
They don't like leave a passive aggressive note, City of Tallahassee, on your trash can. When
Oh no, they will. But usually, what happens is my neighbors are nice enough to kind of just roll it into my garage, like not into my garage, but into the garage door.
All right. You know, I was thinking,
so get off the street.
I don't know if I tried to bully you on this at one point. I think I tried in my mind. I did, but you should do me a solid. You should let me be your house sitter in Tallahassee, and then I can just kind of save up money. I can buy a house like a grown up someday.
Yeah, but doesn't that mean that when I'm back in town, we're roommates?
It's not the end of the world.
I mean, it's no, we can't. We're all having to go through too much right now.
All right.
I can't have a roommate. I can't be in my 40s and have a roommate. I just can't do it. Not even you, somebody that I enjoy immensely.
Okay, makes me feel a little bit better. What'd you do this weekend? Anything fun?
No, kind of uneventful. I had a Zoom happy hour with some friends on Saturday night. Also played some Zoom poker with some other friends where we play you go on these poker sites and they're cash games, but they're free. It's free money. It's not real money on the actual internet site. But then we're actually playing for money. Whoever wins the tournament, we each give them like $20 or $30 or whatever. So we do that. That's fun, and we Zoom while we do it. And also played a little bit more of golf.
Okay.
But just a par 3 course, not the real stuff.
Dude, I miss par 3 courses. I think executive courses is the nomenclature, the terminology for it. The first time I ever played a round of golf was back home, Countryside Executive, RIP. I don't even know what happened to that place. It was right off, I think, 580 back in Clearwater, Dunedin, Countryside. I love par 3 courses, man, because I'm always hunting. For as skeptical and cynical as I am, every single time I step in the tee box on a par 3, I tell everybody that I'm with, hey, y'all want to see a hole in one? I'm like, Here we go. I believe it's going to happen one of these days.
I got within about 6 or 8 feet of one, made the putt, so that was nice. But yeah, I still haven't gotten a hole in one. But what's funny is I took Stephanie out to this course whenever the last time she was up here. Who knows when that was? Right. 2-3 weeks ago. And we went out there and played, and she got the bug. She never really wanted to play golf before, but now she does. So this is kind of funny. Well, this first part isn't. But she had a sister that passed away about a decade ago. Literally, I think about 10 years ago. And her sister was sort of into golf, so she had clubs.
Okay.
And when she died, their mom asked Stephanie if she wanted the clubs, and she's like, no, I will never use them. Give them to my cousin and let her play because they're her and her husband are talking about starting up playing. So let them use Lisa's clubs. That's fine. That'll be fun. I'll never want to use them. And then literally like last week, because she got the bug again, she emailed the cousins like, hey, if y'all aren't using those clubs, would you mind if I had them? Would you mind giving them to me? But she felt so bad about it because she's like, is this awful that I'm doing this? And I'm like, I don't think it's awful because you have to preface it. And I helped her work on the email about like, look, tell them that if they've even used the clubs like twice in the last year or once in the last year and they plan to use them again, you do not want them. And you will send them back if they send them to you. You're only asking if they're like in the garage collecting dust.
Right.
You'll take them because now you want to play. But she was really worried. I'm like, look, and the reality is, what are they going to do? Tell you, no, you can't have your dead sister's clubs back? That's not what family does. So either way, you're going to get those clubs. It's just a matter of if you're taking them, if you're strong arming someone that won't tell you no, even though they golf twice a week, or you're getting them because they don't golf at all. But it turns out, at least what we were told, is that they used them once and they've been in their storage space for like the last 10 years.
All right.
So Stephanie's getting them back.
Nice.
So we're all going to be on the course together, buddy.
All right, yeah, let's do it. So actually, I went out golfing on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's always weird after you golf, getting back in your car, just the driving aspect always will throw me off forever. Like, you're having fun out there in the golf cart, then you get in your big boy car, and it's like, uh-oh, real life's out there. I went to Hilleman, shout out, Municipal Golf, represent, support your city. I don't even count what I shot on the front nine. Wasn't good. Shot birdie number 10, birdie number 18, shot a 44 on the back. So
wow.
Felt good about that.
So you've played golf in your life.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No. I don't. I'm not good at it. I don't even know if I want to play with you.
Yeah. Back when I was really, really trying to be Caucasian, I'm really going to try to fit. I'm going to try to do this white thing.
Right.
Did a lot of golf. So I went out there with a young lady that befriended a while back or whatever, and then they matched us up with two other people, and then so she cut out after like the 15th hole. She was drunk or whatever. She's like, I'm out of here. I'm like, all right, bye. So I finished up, and I don't know who these two guys are. One guy I think was like in his late 60s. The other one was probably in his 50s. Burly guy, ZZ Top beard. I think he's a veteran of one of our armed forces. And we're done on 18, and the guy who's like in his 60s or whatever, like goes to shake my hand, and I'm like, and I shook his hand. I'm like, and then he turns to shake the other guy's hand. Apparently they knew each other, and the veteran guy who's like in his 50s, he's like, I ain't shaking your hand, man. Get out of here with that. So he elbow bumps. I'm like, thank you. I don't want to shake his hand either. So I proceed to retreat into the bathroom and vigorously wash my hands for probably 2.5 minutes. So that's why our show started a little bit later than planned or whatever. But yeah, your boy's good, man. Crushed it. Struck the ball well. I can't golf all that well, but I can strike the hell out of the ball. So
man, well, that's good to end on a birdie though. That'll get you back out there again soon.
Man. Yeah, it'll get me back out there for sure. All right, enough of that. 8 minutes into the show about. Sorry, everybody. Deal with it. What else do you want us to talk about? Florida State football, probably, right? You gain some, you lose some, you win some, you lose some, actually, is the terminology, actually. By the way, shout out to all the moms. Hope you all had a happy Mother's Day. Florida State added a tight end, Jordan Wilson from UCLA. And then Sweet Prince Mike Arnold has departed, apparently. He's put his name into the transfer portal. Greasy, as he's called by his teammates and friends, apparently. He was my sleeper pick, man. I was really hoping for good things from Mike Arnold. I was hoping that maybe he would somehow be able to sneak in there, play a little bit of guard. But his time at Florida State has come to an end. But that's where we're at right now. A guy who probably was, third string, maybe 12th guy in your offensive line rotation leaves, then you sign a transfer from UCLA, and his numbers on Pro Football Focus, not very strong. But then again, I look at Trey McKitty, he pretty much has the same grades as Trey McKitty. They both played 3 seasons, but that's where we're at. Florida State gets a tight end. Meanwhile, Miami hits another pretty big target in the portal. I mean, they got De'Aaron King at quarterback, and then they got this Isaiah Walker kid who's actually from Miami, went to Florida, early enrollee for this past recruiting class, 2020, and is already transferred out of Florida. He's going to Miami. That would have been nice and helpful. And I'm not a big recruitment guy, and we talked a little bit about it on the happy hour. Ira was kind of telling everybody, chill out. And I'm not going to tell people to panic. But I can kind of understand where some of the recruit folks come out, the recruiting fans, in terms of, hey, man, when are they going to start doing something kind of cool? But, again, I think this staff is in the tough predicament of they need to show people something. They need to maybe #do something. But they can't because of everything that's going on. Are you concerned at all about what's going on in terms of people leaving, people coming, other schools signing guys that probably we wanted as well?
Man, I think what it comes down to, though, with Norvell and his staff and where they're really hamstrung is at least Manny Diaz has a year of proof, right? And he's been at Miami for 3 or 4 years, so he's maybe longer than that. I don't know how long he's been at Miami. But he's got a lot of relationships in the state. He's got a lot of relationships with head coaches around the state. Man, Norvell, all of that has just been put on hold. So, like, when you think about it, when you really take a step back and you think about, okay, Florida State's had back-to-back losing seasons. They've won 19 games in 3 years. It's the second new coach in 3 years. No real recent history of success. Now, 5 years ago, they were the best team. 6 years ago, they're the best team in the country. But you know what I mean? Like, no real recent success. And you don't have any access to these players. How weird would it be if they were bringing in a bunch of high 4-star recruits or any recruits? Like, how could anybody commit to Florida State right now in the current landscape of the world in college football,
Opportunity, charismatic staff.
No, but like all that's good, and I think when the real signing day comes, I think they'll be fine. But right now in May, in the middle of a pandemic, when states are still, some of them aren't even loosening up, who knows when an official visit can happen again? It would be, to me, it would be kind of crazy for some dude who's never visited Florida State in official capacity to be like, yep, that's where I'm going. Who's never even seen Norvell coach a game at Florida State, probably hasn't even seen a practice, has never been in the same room with them. I just think it's going to be really hard during this to kind of wow people when you have no established relationships with almost anyone in the state. I mean, so I get it. I mean, I get why Florida State fans would be like worried about this recruiting class, but I don't necessarily think that means you need to be worried about him as a recruiter. It's just we have to understand the obstacles, the bizarre, once-in-a-lifetime, let's hope, obstacles of this spring. I just think it'd be completely different if they'd had a spring game, if they'd had the 12 other practices where you could have showcased what you were doing to anybody that wanted to come out there. They haven't gotten that opportunity. So what are you going to do? Commit in a Zoom meeting? I don't know. We'll see once things when they get back to normal. What he looks like and what this staff looks like as recruiters.
I mean, you're not wrong. The Isaiah Walker kid's from Miami. I think he went to Norland High School, so I'm sure he probably has a lot more familiarity with Miami, so it's probably easier for him to transfer there. But by the same token, how does Florida State get a transfer from UCLA? I mean, how familiar is that kid?
I don't know. What is the story there? Where's that kid from?
Let me pull it up here.
Your transfers are different, I think. Transfers, it's just you're making a 6-month decision. It's not a 4-year decision. So transfers, that's kind of to me like a coin flip. Like you either impress them or they're interested in your school for whatever reason or they're not. I'm more talking about the actual high school seniors, high school juniors and seniors.
He's from Nashville, Tennessee, Jordan Wilson.
There you go. So he probably had a history with them when they were at Memphis, is what I'm guessing.
Ah, that's right. Look at you.
There we go, buddy.
Detective Clark. It's just
I'm sure it's not great for Florida State fans to see Derek King going to Miami and then this kid transfer from one rival to another.
Well, Derek King, obviously that happened before the pandemic. He was able to, there was maybe some more information out there for him. I don't even know Florida State even had – I don't even know Norvell was hired when Derek King announced he was transferring to Miami. Well, like the Isaiah Walker thing, that's what kind of really stings, that obviously Florida State could use all the help they could get at tackle. And I don't know if he was a Rivals 100 guy, but I know for sure he was a 4-star. So when a guy like that commits to Miami and then you miss out on him, and there was mutual interest apparently between both sides on that. It's like it's like going on Facebook or something, and you see your ex, and she is, I don't know, like on the Amalfi Coast in Italy or something, and then you're like in Panacea. It's like maybe just let's not share the photo of you in Panacea with the big fish because just doesn't quite compare. It's like, but then what are you going to tell the kid? Like, hey, don't announce on Twitter you're committing to us. It's going to look weird. Isaiah Walker is the number 31 offensive tackle in the nation, number 40 in the state. I don't know where he ranked nationally though, but 4-star, 6'4", 310.
I mean, they could use all the beef they could get. Hey, by the way, I didn't know what you planned on talking about, but I have a story dropping some point this week. I think it's actually dropping today on Warchant. It's just a column about the similarities between the 2010 team and the 2020 team.
You mentioned this on the happy hour. Yeah, what's that all about?
So
who put you up to this? Was this you?
Nobody.
Or did Ira
it was
put you
me.
Up
it was no. I'm telling you, man. Every time Ira's said, "Hey, why don't you write a column on this?" It ends up almost costing me my job. It happened when Bryles was hired, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess we see what Willie cares about the most," and whatever my sentiment was there that was not met kindly by the Warchant denizens, and then I wrote one about Greg Fry getting fired. Yeah. And I wasn't even trying to take a shot, and Ira's like, I didn't read it as you taking a shot. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm done writing columns that you suggest. Hey, there's a new coaching hire, write a column about it. No. But anyway, so no, this was kind of on my own, just thinking about because I'm sold on Norvell. To me, he's just been really impressive in all our interactions. How serious he is, the 3 practices we got to watch, it was just really impressive. And let's be honest, it was completely different than what we had been seeing. And I think my thought philosophy is the disparity between Norvell's current staff, the current staff at Florida State, and the one that just left, is, in my opinion, about the same as the disparity between the 2010 Florida State staff and the 2009 Florida State staff. I just think it was and I'm a huge Bobby Bowden fan. I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for Bobby Bowden. But the difference between 2009 Bobby Bowden and 2010 Jimbo Fisher was an enormous upgrade. Would you agree on that?
Yes.
2019 Willie Taggart, 2020 Mike Norvell. I think we can agree that that's we think, I shouldn't say that, we don't know. I think it's going to be a pretty big upgrade. So you keep that in mind. We both think they're going to be better coached, right? Better prepared?
Yes.
Now, when you look at the numbers of the recruits on the rosters, so in 2010, I know it's a lot of numbers I'm throwing at you, not a ton though. So in 2010, Florida State had 33 different players start a game. 32 different players start a game. 32. You listening?
In 2010.
In 2010, they had 32 different players, 19 on offense, 13 on defense. So all told, the starters for the 2010 Florida State football team consisted of 3 2-star recruits, 12 3-star recruits, 13 4-star recruits, and 4 5-star recruits. Now, those 5-star recruits were Nigel Bradham, Greg Reed, who I would say both of them lived up to their billing, Marcus White and Jacoby McDaniel, who did not. Those were the 5-star recruits on that team. So basically, if we want to count 4 stars and 5 stars as blue chip players, they had 17 of the 32 that started games, 17 were blue chip recruits. Now going into this season, the 2020 team, there are 33 players that have started multiple games in college on the roster right now. You know, some have come from Louisville, some have come from Purdue, some has come from Texas A&M, but there's 33 players. Of those 33 players, there are 16 4-star recruits and 5 5-star recruits. So there's 21 blue chip players on this roster that have started games.
Out of how many?
Out of 33.
All right, so
compared
that's
to
60. That's 64%. We'll round it up to versus 53% in 2010.
So, yeah, and so in there's 2 2-star recruits, and both of those guys are the transfers. It's the Love Taylor from FIU, and it's the Purdue kid Jones. Yeah. Those are the only 2-star recruits that have started games, and both those guys are probably just for depth, right? I mean, I guess they could both start, but the point is that this current roster, the 2020 roster, is very comparable in star rankings anyway. And remember, one of those 3-star recruits for Florida State right now is Tamarian Terry, who's played like a 4 or 5-star recruit. So it's very comparable. The star ranking and the talent level, this roster compared to the 2010 roster. The main difference, and it's a big one, is the 2010 team had Christian Ponder.
Yeah.
This one does not.
Better quarterback play. Period,
they had better quarterback play. They had Rodney Hudson. This team does not have a Rodney Hudson, though we don't know how good Dante Lucas is going to end up being. He might end up being in that ilk. But, that team had 3 3-stars, Rodney Hudson, Xavier Rhodes, and Christian Ponder, who were probably the 3 best players on the team. I don't know if this team has 3 3-stars like that. Tamarian Terry is one. But anyway, that's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of mumbo-jumbo. But my point in the column is that I don't see any reason why this team that should be better than last year's team, because it's going to be better coached, can't get to 9 wins. Because the 2010 team, all the 2010 team, it was many of the same players. Many of the same players. The biggest difference was coaching. They just got coached a lot better. They were competently coached. And again, it's a shot at Bound. I'm not trying to take a shot at Bound, but we all understand the reality of what the 2009 season was. They were competently coached. The whole program was shifted, and it was just a much better program from day one. And just with the talent that was there, they went from a 7-win team, could have been a 5-win team, to a 10-win team. And I think it's a similar situation going into this season. I think, you're good. That team won a couple coin flips and lost a couple coin flips. And they got bulldozed by Oklahoma, and they got kind of bulldozed by Virginia Tech. Those were just two teams they should have lost to. The other games they lost were NC State when Ty Jones strip sacked Christian Ponder, and then they missed a field goal at the end against North Carolina. So but they also won a coin flip game. They won 2 coin flip games too, when Hopkins kicked the 55-yarder and they beat Boston College by 5 points. So I think if you get that kind of luck, you get 4 or 5 coin flip games. You win 2 or 3 of them, and you lose the one that you're definitely going to lose. Well, then all of a sudden if you win the games you should win, which you have exponentially more talent, then you're looking at 8 or 9 wins. And I just think Mike Norvell is a good enough coach. I don't know why I'm sold on him. It's just those 3 practices, and it's what he preaches. But I just think they're going to be so much better coached that 9 wins is legitimately realistic for 2020. My biggest concern with this program is what's 2021 going to be. Just because I think there's going to be a dearth of talent because you're going to lose a lot of those really good players.
Lot to unpack there.
Sorry, buddy.
No.
I know.
A good thing to do on a Monday when there's frankly nothing to talk about. This is actually a really good concept that you brought.
And we're recording before the Jordan documentary, so we can't even talk about that.
Right. All right. Let's start here. So I've been doing. I should have. Maybe next week will start being Memphis Mike Mondays, where I'll start talking about a game that I've watched from Mike Norvell at Memphis that he lost. So when I'm judging him and looking at these games, Corey, should I project Mike Norvell as 2016 first year at Memphis, however his first year as a head coach, or should I judge him more along the lines of what he did in 2019? I feel like the games in 16 should carry more weight because I feel, he inherited the roster. Even though it was his first year as a head coach and now he's got 4 years under his belt, it's still your first year at a new place. So I don't know, because I understand what you're saying. This will be a better coached team than Willie Taggart. But the games that I've seen from 16, I've seen some stuff where I'm like, well, that looks familiar. So I don't know how different it'll be from the jump. So I mean, should I put more credence in the 16 games or the 19 games?
Yeah, no, I think, man, I think me personally, and I don't even know how far down that road I would go, but I would say that he is what he is as a coach. You know what I mean? I would say he's a better coach now than he was in 2016. Just like I think Jimbo Fisher obviously was a better coach in 2014 than he was in 2010. You learn things, you grow. So I would give him more of the 2019. That's not saying I'm expecting a Cotton Bowl. But I would put more stock into what he did his 4th year as a head coach, because I just think you grow. You learn what you want as a program. You learn what's important to yourself as a coach, as a disciplinarian, how to handle a team, how to handle a staff. I think he has a much better idea now than he did as coming off being was the offensive coordinator. I mean, I just think he knows more. He's in a better position to know exactly what he's looking for now than he was in 2016.
Okay. That's all right. That's probably fair. Good. I mean, I started watching the first half of his game against USF in 16, which was against Taggart, which is probably the best coaching job Willie Taggart's ever done in his career. There's just some stuff where I'm like, ugh. But again, that's his first year. All right. So,
but you're also going to see, if you're going to just judge just strictly on what you see on the field, which again, that's kind of how everybody gets judged, honestly. But just judging on what you see on the field, all these coaches, other than the guy in Tuscaloosa, is going to have some moments where you're like, oh,
absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, and I'm purposely watching the losses because I've watched enough other teams play that these things, the things that when I was not covering the team and I was just a Florida State fan, I would listen to Seminole headlines and the things that you guys would kind of I think was nitpicking at Jimbo, to me, like weren't uniquely Jimbo Fisher problems. It was just like, dude, like 17 other coaches and like the AP top 25 have done that in the last like 14 days, have come out of a change of possession and had to burn a timeout or had a delay of game in a end of series, end of quarter drive. Like these aren't like uniquely positioned to being Jimbo Fisher things. Keeping it on that 2010 versus 2020 comparison, I was going to probably say, well, let's maybe look at the schedules here. But that 2010 schedule wasn't a piece of cake, man. I mean, they had Samford to start the season, but then they had Oklahoma, which was a trouncing, and then they beat BYU, and then you had Wake, Virginia, Miami. I mean, you had your ACC schedule, and you had a Florida team that's probably not going to be, definitely wasn't as good as what Florida will be this season, but otherwise, well, it's probably a comparable schedule.
I do think it's a comparable schedule. Yeah. I think Clemson takes the place of Oklahoma because Florida State, as we all remember that game, had no business really even being on the field with Oklahoma. I mean, they were just steamrolled. And I think that'll be maybe not quite as bad. Hopefully it's not quite as bad, but heck, we've seen the last 2 years. If they can keep it within 30, great. So I think Clemson and Oklahoma are interchangeable. Okay. I will say that Florida team that started 2010, we all thought that team was going to be great. I mean, they had just landed all those great recruits the last 3 years. That team was stacked with talent. Right. Just by the end of the year, they didn't want any part of playing for Urban Meyer anymore, and he was halfway out. That was their Jimbo 2017 season. But talent-wise, I would say that Florida team talent-wise was as skilled as this Florida team, right? Don't you think? Probably a coin flip, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
if
fair.
we go back and look at the NFL draft, I would imagine there were plenty of dudes that played in the league off that Florida team, just not the quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's fair. And then let's take
So,
it down.
comparable schedules, right? And there's two differences. That the one that is more of a macro is that obviously Jimbo had been at Florida State for 3 years. So he had a head start on what needed to be fixed, and he had at least been able to get his offense installed. And it had been installed for 3 years. That is an advantage. But when you look I forgot what I was going to say micro about the differences. So, no, Clemson, that year, Clemson, obviously in 2010 wasn't Clemson now. Like, that team got to play in the ACC championship game. This team, I don't think, is going to be playing in an ACC championship game. I'm pretty safe in saying that.
Clemson
so I think that's
ranked.
a difference.
Clemson wasn't even ranked when they played them. You know what? Florida State only played 4 teams that were ranked when they locked horns, and one of them was the bowl game.
Don't you think that'll be similar this year, though? I don't look at that schedule and like, wow, maybe I don't look at that schedule and
Boise's probably not going to get ranked.
If they are, you're talking about a 22nd, 23rd.
I don't think West Virginia will be ranked top 25 preseason. So Clemson is probably one of the only teams.
Clemson, Florida,
North Carolina,
Miami,
Florida,
maybe.
North Carolina. Well, actually, we have North Carolina on the schedule. I'm looking at
Pittsburgh,
the 2010 schedule.
Pittsburgh, maybe. I don't know. Pittsburgh has a really good defense, but I can't imagine they'll be ranked. Dan Marino's not the quarterback, so which I think was the last time they were ranked. I just think they're comparable schedules. I think the talent is comparable, other than at quarterback. I do think there are advantages that Jimbo had, obviously being there 3 years, and he did flood that roster with talent. It was young talent. Like LaMarcus Joyner didn't make a huge impact in 2010, but he did play some. I don't think there's a LaMarcus Joyner in this recruiting class that's going to be a nickelback or going to be playing a lot on third down situation. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just you look at the roster, you look at the talent, you hope that Kendo can be just healthy, number one, and then can be good. You obviously got one of the best defensive tackles in the country, which that team did not. You've got one of the best receivers in the country, which that 2000 team certainly did not. So I think I think it's fair to think that with this team better coached, like what would the roster have been? What would the record have been last year if Norvell is as good as I think he is? What would their record have been?
9-4,
maybe, right? So I don't think it's outlandish to think that they could do that again. I think you could beat Virginia. I think you definitely beat Boise. Well, you're at 8 win. I don't think you get rolled by Miami. That Miami loss is so inexplicable. Not that they lost because Florida State wasn't very good, but just Miami doesn't blow out anyone ever.
Yeah.
Not since Ed Reed was intercepting passes have they blown out anyone, and they just embarrassed you on your home field. And I just don't think that happens under Norvell. I could be completely naive, This might be all wishful thinking. I might be trying to speak it into existence, but I just don't think that Norvell has a team that completely unprepared, like Willie Taggart had multiple times.
I think you should watch some of the games at Memphis. I think you should watch maybe one or two. I'll do the legwork on it, and then I'll bring it to the table on Mondays. True or false, Corey? 5 programs more. Let me put it 4.5 over under the amount of programs that have more Pro Football Hall of Famers than the University of Pittsburgh.
Ooh, I might say under. You know that because I looked it up. That 1980 team had 4 of them. Yeah. The team that Florida State beat, they had Marino, they had Russ Grimm, they had
Jimbo Covert probably,
and Mark May maybe.
Mayday. Mayday's not a Pro Football Hall. I'm talking Pro Football Hall of Famer. No.
Yeah. Okay. I thought Mark May was Russ Grimm, Jimbo Covert, Marino. Maybe
Dorset.
Bill Fralick was on that team. Dorset wasn't on the 80 team. So yeah, I would say, man, I would imagine they're in the top 5 all time, aren't they?
Yeah, they're tied for 5th with Miami. They got more Hall of Famers than Alabama, Pittsburgh.
Dude, I
rewatched
that 80 game.
Jimbo Covert, Mike Ditka, Chris Dolman, Tony Dorsett, Russ Grimm, Ricky Jackson.
Jackson was on that 80 team.
You know Ricky Jackson, his nephew is Jarrett Jackson, the transfer from Louisville that's on the roster now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Dome
that's
Patrol.
cool.
He's Dome Patrol, right, Ricky Jackson?
Yeah,
Saints?
he played with Sam Mills, yeah.
Dan Marino, Curtis Martin, and Joe Schmidt. I don't know who Joe Schmidt is, but I know everybody else I just named before that. That's
so
incredible.
that 1980 team, you said Covert, right?
Yes.
Covert, Grimm, Marino, and Ricky Jackson, along with Mark May, who's a College Football Hall of Famer, and Hugh Green, who was a College Football Hall of Famer, who finished second in the Heisman voting that year in 1980. They were all on that 1980 team that Florida State beat. Yeah. And that's the only loss they had all season. That was an incredible, incredible team. Bowden always said it was the best team he ever played. And they won, 36-22. So, yeah, man, Pittsburgh's had – but how did that happen? Just because high school football was so big in Pennsylvania and, the factories shut down?
The coal mining towns, Western Pennsylvania, buddy,
But did they all leave and move to Florida because of the factories shutting down? What happened? Why is it Pitt's been an afterthought for 20 years, 25 years?
Well, what happened to Nebraska, right? What happened to
Well, yeah, but I don't know that Nebraska was ever getting their best players from Nebraska.
Yeah.
But I thought Pitt was just, that was a hotbed, man. That Western Pennsylvania, all the quarterbacks and everything. Anyway.
Here's a fun fact for everybody. Georgetown and New York University, NYU, have more Pro Football Hall of Famers than Florida.
Oh, there you go. Nice. So who's going to be Florida State's next one? You think there's any chance that Anquan gets in?
Man, maybe on the heels of – actually, I don't know. Maybe his social justice is going to rub people
no, I don't think so. Not the people that vote. They do that in those – it's not like it's a weird voting system they have where they just get in a room and yap about it for 4 hours.
He got that ring with the Ravens, which was a big deal. I just remember him getting his face exploded against the Jets when he was with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And came back 3 weeks later, which was just absolutely absurd. I mean, it's up there with Terrell Owens breaking his leg and coming back for the Super Bowl. I mean, it's up there in terms of most gritty performances returning from injury. I mean, that and he had pretty good longevity. His rookie year was amazing. I think he had the rookie record, I think, at some point, maybe got broke here for either yards as a rookie or receptions as a rookie. He's got some pretty good things to hang his hat on. But
man, I think when he was coming up, I think he had some crazy record where he was the quickest person to 100 catches, the quickest person to 200 catches, the quickest person to 300 catches. He's had all kinds of records, and he ended up with 82 touchdowns, almost 1,400 yards receiving, 1,076 catches.
I'll say this: he's more of a shot than Warwick Dunn.
Yeah, I think so. And you would hope that both of them would get in on just what they do. Not that that's what carries the day, but if you're a fringe player anyway, if you're right on the cusp and you're an awesome person off the field, it seems like those are the kind of people you'd want to celebrate and put in the Hall of Fame. Absolutely. It's not like people would go oh, man, what are you putting Anquan Boldin in the Hall of Fame for? Yeah. Or Warwick Dunn. They don't belong. I don't think anybody would say that. But, yeah, he had I'm looking at it right now. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He had 7 1,000-yard seasons. He led the league 1 year. Yeah, man, I I think he has a chance. I think Leroy Butler should be in.
Yeah.
He was a finalist this year, which is a good sign. Hopefully there'll be more of a groundswell. And then after that, I don't know, Ramsey?
Jameis, once he takes over for Breeze, man, starts lining it
That's
up.
true. That's true. He's going to go to 3 straight Super Bowls. We're all rooting for you, Jameis. We hope that. Well, no, that's not true. I'm a Falcons fan. Let's not do that. Jameis, I want you to play well but lose at least twice a year.
Really? Come on. You're not that big of a Falcons fan.
No, I want him to lose to the Falcons, though.
Oh.
I just said twice a year. You can still do whatever you want to do, the other 14 games.
Whatever. All right, hey, back to your 2010-2020 comparison.
Okay.
Let's go heads up then on all these coaches. You tell me better, worse, push. Jimbo versus Mike Norvell, head coach.
I mean, you got to go Jimbo for now. I don't know that Jimbo in 2010 was better than Norvell with 5 years of experience or whatever, but I think I would go with Jimbo just because Norvell hasn't won a national championship.
Let's do it then.
It's hard though, It's hard.
Okay.
It's hard to compare that. It really is.
James Coley as your offensive coordinator.
Yeah, right. Like I like
Dillingham.
I like Dillingham. And another thing I pointed out with the difference between one of the really cool things about this particular coaching staff is, Willie Taggart was meeting these guys, his offensive coordinators, he knew for about 15 minutes before he hired them. Like, these guys have a really long history together. Norvell's known Dillingham since high school. So, since Dillingham was in high school, they didn't go to prom together. In the same limo. You know what I mean? Like, you went to prom with a buddy, right? There's a big group of y'all that went to prom. Yeah, you know what I meant. I think that's an advantage that Norvell has that maybe Jimbo didn't have with some of those coaches. I think Norvell knows more of these coaches than Jimbo knew, right? Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Coley was also your tight ends coach. So you've got him going against Chris Thompson. So we're going to give 2020 the edge on that.
But
Damian Craig is
know.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So on field coaching, I think I like whoever you're going to give me with Damian Craig and whoever's going up against Coley. I don't know how involved they were with the on-field stuff. We obviously understand that. They flooded the roster with great players. Okay. So I don't want to and that's a pretty important part of the process. I don't want to dismiss their contributions to Florida State football during that time, but actual on-the-field coaching in that, and I'm not saying that they can't coach or don't know what they're doing, especially Coley, because he's obviously had a career after Jimbo. But Jimbo wasn't that. He was handcuffed, man. He wasn't the OC. Right. He was an OC in name only. He was there to recruit for Jimbo.
Well, even the dynamic of Jimbo and Coley versus the dynamic of Norvell and Dillingham. And
yeah, I like that. I like the Norvell and Dillingham.
And to your point, I think the crux of all this is, 2010 versus 2020 in terms of like the talent is pretty much the same. So if you have better coaching than what you had the preceding season, where will you be? So, we're obviously factoring that in. Lawrence Dawsey is your wide receivers coach.
I don't know.
This is tough because of the whole recruiting aspect of it.
But I'm not even focusing on that. Obviously, that's a huge deal. I'm just focusing on the coaching, the on-field coaching, game plan, the prep that's going to go into the 2020 season, not the 2022 season where you need a roster full of big-time players. And we'll see if this coaching staff can produce that. But right now, with the talent that's been given to them, well, yeah.
I'll give 10 the edge then, because I think Dawsey probably had a better idea of what Jimbo wanted to execute than what Dugans has an idea of.
But I think Dugans is good at his job.
Yeah,
I do think that. But, yeah, I don't think Dawsey didn't have a great track record with getting guys to the league, and not necessarily everybody developed great under him, like especially after Kelvin and Rashad left. But still, man, that goes with every coach. Every coach is going to have some guys that don't develop at the rate or the speed or at all like you'd want them
to. They put a really weird way of lining all these guys up. They jump ahead to defensive ends. So you have DJ Elliott versus John Papuchis.
Yeah, again, it's hard, man. It's hard. I think the better we could do this, and I don't know who's going to come out on top.
Well, I'm taking Italia. That's the whole point of this. What else are we going to do, Corey?
Well, right. I liked Elliott. I didn't get to talk with him much, but I liked him. And, those 2010 – I mean, he did get. I mean, he got Bjorn Werner as a freshman. He didn't play a ton, but they did have Brandon Jenkins, who was good, and Marcus White, who was okay.
I was going to give Papuchis the edge, just because I think at that point, that was DJ Elliott's first year. I'd give the edge to Papuchis, because Papuchis had a little more seasoning. Your running backs coach, special teams coordinator is Eddie Gran. Versus, I like David Johnson a lot. I'm going to say that's a push.
Okay, hey, let's push them all.
I'm not pushing them all. Come on, that's you gotta have some guts here, man. Defensive lines coach is Odell Higgins, so
there you go. I like the 2020 version of Odell better. He's a little more seasoned. Got a couple head coaching stints under his belt.
O-line.
And he's also got Marvin Wilson.
O-line. Rick Trickett versus Alex Atkins. I mean,
what's crazy is if you look at the O-line, like he did have Hudson, which that was a find, obviously. But you just look at that roster that he had, and it's like it's just Henry Orlis and Spurlock and Datko and just guys that were just. Zebri was probably the most talented of the bunch, other than Hudson. Ronnie Sanderson, people like that, and you're like, man, what? So this has just been going on forever. It's just been going on forever. When you look at the O-line, the lineup of O-linemen on the roster, and you're just like, ugh. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that they had, even like the early 2000s, they still had really good linemen. They had Ray Willis, and they had that 2002 the Florida State team in 2002
Williams
ran for 300 yards on Miami.
Yeah, the Williamses, Montre Holland, Marambo was a really good center. Ray Willis was out there getting some burn. He might have actually played one of the tackles. I think he might have played right tackle, and Brett Williams was
Ray Willis, and they had Alex Barron. Yeah. I mean, and they were just mashing people.
They're huge. They're big,
this doesn't have to be our reality, folks. Yeah. It doesn't have to be our reality as a Florida State media or you as Florida State fans to be like, well, we just got to make do with whatever we can do get on the offensive line. This isn't how it's supposed to be. But it's been this way for a decade and a half now. So anyway, you look at that 2010 line and you look at the 2020 line. Other than Rodney Hudson, who, again, I think Dante Lucas, I don't know if he's going to be Rodney Hudson, but he has a chance to be pretty darn good. They're similar. They're similar talent levels on the offensive lines then and there. Again, I think Trickett, his acumen is undoubtable. We know he knows what he's talking about. It's just he didn't have a lot of, for all reasons we've covered a lot, didn't have a ton of great talent to work with. So, yeah, again, I like this guy, though, man, and I like that he had a dude drafted. A lot.
Okay.
This shouldn't mean much. It was a 7th round, but I like that he had a guy drafted.
Yeah, I think 4th round.
I thought was he a 4th rounder?
Pretty sure. The guy from Charlotte. Yeah, I'll double check it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Memphis had the guy. Yep, you're right. He was a 4th. Man, that to me, that says something, man.
Yeah. And it's weird how they broke everything up because they didn't have the 10 coaches, which obviously wasn't a big deal, as Willie Taggart proved this past season.
Sure, right.
So then defensive coordinator, because, everything's bundled up. He's your DC and your defensive back coach, Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops obviously gets the edge.
Yeah, sure. Yep. And Mark Stoops was really good, by the way. Just because I get bored at night now, I'm bored all the time, really, but I've been watching some like old 2010, 2012 games. That 2012 defense, man, and 11 too, was legit. Yep. Now, Jimbo gave him a lot of groceries to make the meal, but holy moly, man, that defense just did not give up much of anything.
No. All right, so with that said, 2020 has the edge in 4, 2010 has the edge in 4, and then they push twice. So they're as equal as equal can be.
But again, right, we do think they're competent. They're competent. They're going to be competently coached. Just like when Jimbo took over, obviously the head coach was different, but you also lost some position coaches that maybe weren't ready to be position coaches at that level. And I think you've done that here again. I think across the board, you're probably going to get getting better coached across the board. That can only help. And I think the 2010 team has, even if we want to say Jimbo's better than Norvell, which is fine, I don't think anybody could rationally argue otherwise right now with the evidence. The 2010 team had a first-round quarterback. And this team, there are literally 4 guys that we don't know who's going to be the starter. Not only did they have Ponder, they also had E.J. Manuel, who had to start a few games that year.
Devontre, too? Do we still have Devo?
No, not in 10. He was 08. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that time, people call me Jimbo Homer. I mean, Jimbo had he was offensive coordinator of a national championship winning team. I'll give that a little more, just a smidge more than making it to a New Year's Six bowl at a.
No, but as a head coach, it's a whole different deal. I mean, I think if you were hiring right then in 2004 and you're going to hire a guy that's been just an OC, or you're going to be hiring a guy that just coached Memphis to a Cotton Bowl and has got, a 750 winning percentage or whatever it is, you'd be like, it wouldn't be that cut and dry. Obviously now I think Jimbo is obviously a much bigger name, but yeah, I mean, I think that I don't want to just dismiss what Norvell did at Memphis, because his resume, in my opinion, is probably more impressive, or is more impressive than what Jimbo's was when he got the head coach and waiting at Florida State.
All right.
Just, being a head coach for 4 years, being an OC before that. But yeah, it worked out. Jimbo did some great things and was a great recruiter. More than anything, he was a great recruiter, and we all know that first staff, especially the first two coaches you mentioned on that staff, were almost specifically brought in to recruit, and that's what they did.
Did you get guys like LaMarcus before the season started?
He got LaMarcus to commit, I feel like it was like a week after that Bowden announced his retirement. Like, he got LaMarcus and Jeff Luke to commit in December. Like, after Bowden had announced, or after it was announced that Bowden was out.
What was someone else I was supposed to fact check? He committed on December 10th, 2009. So LaMarcus Joyner committed to Jimbo Fisher without having seen him coach one game as a head football coach.
Oh yeah, that was the beauty. That was the advantage.
Well, I think that's what some of the fans are trying to say about Norvell. It's like I don't think it's probably apples oranges, apples avocados, pork chops grits. But I think that's kind of what some of the quibbling is going on over there. It's like, man, it'd be really nice if we could sell these guys. Just, obviously need to show something, but it'd be nice if they could, figure out a way to identify somebody of high caliber and try to make them, create the moment.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, man, it would be nice. You need a big domino to fall, like what Tennessee's got going on right now.
My gosh,
who knows how they're doing it? Who knows?
I think you get to a point. I think with Ole Miss, it was they saw the first year of Hugh Freeze. They went 2-10 the year before. His first year there, they go 7-6. They beat Mississippi State, I think, in the Egg Bowl in 2012. Yeah, they did. They beat him in 2012. And that got them bowl eligible. They win the bowl game. So I think at that point is like the nexus of, okay, this guy is good. Let's go all in. And by all in, I mean, let's start bending rules and funneling money, sums of cash to make this all happen. I think Tennessee's probably in the same boat. I think they were lost in the wilderness. And for all the struggles that Jeremy Pruitt had, that was his second season though, right? This past year? 19 was the second season, right?
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, so, I mean, despite the fact that they lost to what? They lost like Georgia Southern and BYU, or maybe to one of them, and they definitely lost to the other. I think there was enough towards the end of the season. Like, they hung tough with Alabama for a minute. They obviously won their bowl game, which was Indiana, which is crazy. I think, like, the power broke. Like, all right, fine, let's do it. I hate to be, reckless and accuse programs of cheating, but let's all be grown-ups here about it. And especially in that conference, I do think they get to a point where it's like any small spark that we can blow on to make it into a smoldering fire to get this thing back, we're all for it. Let's do it. So I think, like, they've seized what they feel is their opportunity with a Florida team that, frankly, they're going to maybe be able to keep Georgia honest when it comes to competing for the SEC East, but I don't think anybody's really that scared of what Dan Mullen's building in Gainesville. They're doing well. You really can't complain. I mean, they went to New Year's Six Bowl and with 2 years in a row, I think. So it's nothing really to sneeze at, but they don't want to lose any more ground to Georgia and what Florida's creating. So I think, like, they're kind of jumping into this with both feet. Good luck to them. We'll see how it works out.
Hey, man, yeah, it'd be good if Tennessee was. It'd be cool if Tennessee was actually relevant again in college football, because it's been a while. But yeah, so they do need something like that. Again, it's just that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. I just think it's hard right now. It would be eye-opening. It's not eye-opening when Florida State gets a big-time recruit. Right now, coming off what they've come off, Norvell coming in with real no connections to the state, to be, getting a flood or even just a small flurry of big-time recruits to commit with nothing really to see, not even practices to see, not even official visits, would be surprising. So hopefully we can get back to official visits soon, Aslan. That's the gist of what I'm trying to say.
Looking at this, now these guys were verbally committed. They did not, obviously. So you've got Joyner, Jeff Luke, Mike Harris, Greg Dent, Amp McLeod, DeBrail Smiley. But those don't count. I think they were non-qualifiers from a few years prior. Cam Irving's a guy who verbally committed before then. Telvin Smith committed in the summer. But obviously,
yeah.
I mean,
and then he went back and forth.
We didn't know for sure. We didn't know for sure though that Bobby's last season was going to be 2009 at that point, did we?
No, that didn't become official until he was essentially fired
after the USF game, right?
No, it was after the Florida game.
Oh,
USF. They gave him an ultimatum or something. Yeah, 2009 was after the Florida game. Is like the day later, 2 days later, is when all that stuff came down.
Well, Jim, when was the USF game? Was that 2000?
That was 2009, but that was like in September.
But I feel like that was it. Like that was.
Well, no. What really happened, honestly, is it was after South Florida did not help, and then when Bowden afterwards said, "Well, you got to basically play perfect to beat them," and it's like, man, that team won 7 games, bud.
But by the way, real quick, people might have some really bad interpretation that Corey is like bad mouthing Bobby Bowden. There's the amount of respect and reverence that Corey has for Bobby Bowden is absolutely amazing. Like he's helped bring me back to the right side of things because I remember so much of like the lost decade. Like my wheelhouse for Bobby Bowden, unfortunately, were the worst seasons of his career. Meanwhile, the formative years of Corey Clark's fandom and becoming a college football fan was witnessing Bobby Bowden accomplish, quite frankly, miracles. So
I always want to stress that again, I wouldn't have this job. You wouldn't be listening to me. You might not even be a Florida State fan. I'm talking to you, listener. So yeah, it just so happens that sometime last week, all I did was rip Bowden for the end of the Nebraska game, where he won the national title, and now I'm talking about 2009 Bobby Bowden. But we all know that guy wasn't the Bobby Bowden. None of us. I wouldn't have been. I might not even become a college football fan if it wasn't for Bobby Bowden. Like he was my childhood. And I'm telling you, folks, if you haven't, go and watch the thing we did. Ira and I did about the 1985 documentary where they is it Gary Jordan, right?
Yes, Gary Jordan. Yes. Finding a Way.
It's called Finding a Way. It's on YouTube. It's really neat, and it gives you a great insight into Bobby Bowden, 1985 Bobby Bowden, when he was still calling everything. He was not the grandfather writing in his notebook, standing on the 20. He was involved in everything. Go watch that to get a real sense of who he was as a football coach. But anyway, but 2009 Bobby Bowden wasn't. He was a detriment to the program. He just was. So anybody coming in that was going to modernize it, that was actually going to be involved, was going to give you a full staff instead of having to coach 9 on 10 or 8 on 9 every week, was going to be an improvement. Jimbo was just a massive improvement because he was Jimbo. He was really good. But yeah, that 2009 team, the 2009 season started with the last-second loss to Miami, where Fortson drops it in the end zone. There still should have been a second on the clock. Then they barely beat the Ryan Perilou team. Who was that? Was that Troy?
No, it was like was it a Louisiana team?
I thought it was.
I got to pull up the schedule now because I'm.
Yeah, do that. Now I got you doing that. So
Jacksonville State.
There we go. I knew it was in Alabama. Come on, give me a break, guys.
Yeah, close enough.
Then they go and beat BYU. They stun BYU, and then they just go on a losing streak. And so they lost to South Florida, and then they go up to BC. They go up to Boston College and lose in the rain. And then that Sunday is when I was at the Democrat at the time. Is when we wrote the story where Bill Smith, who, if you don't know who Bill Smith is, learn him. You should. He basically, he's the one that said, he's quoted in the paper as saying it's time. And when you lost him, when you lost the one of the big guys, that's when you knew the writing was on the wall and it was going to be the last season. And then Bobby Bowden, it kind of became him trying to say, I just want one more season after this one. I just want one more season after this one. And they just didn't give it to him. So, but yes, I think after the Boston College game is when they came out all locked in arms They walked out of the tunnel and then proceeded to give up 900 rushing yards to Georgia Tech and lose that game too. So the 2009 Bobby Bowden isn't the one that I choose to focus on. It's more of like the mid 80s up to 2000. But I just think, going back to the original point, I think that the difference between Willie Taggart and Norvell could be, again, this is all speculative. I don't know. We haven't seen how Norvell can rally this group of guys that isn't used to winning. But I do think that just the overall competency level will be raised similarly to the way it was raised between 2009 and 2010. But the recruiting will not be there. You are not going to be landing a top 5 class or top 8 class, I don't think, with number one, the history of losing. It's a brand new staff. Jimbo had some continuity. These kids have been coming to the camp, and they knew Jimbo for 2 years. I'm sure he was telling them all behind the scenes, look, trust me, I'm going to be your head coach. I promise you I'm going to be your head coach. It's not going to be long. And they believed him, and then they all committed in December. Some of them committed before that, thinking or knowing that Jimbo was going to be their head coach. Norvell doesn't have that advantage, and that's the next step. But don't you think a 9-win season in 2020 could get that ball rolling a little bit?
Oh, absolutely, especially if you beat a Miami. I mean, can you say you beat a Florida? I never like chalking up a loss to those people, but that's going to be tough. 9 wins. That's it's a new day. It's a new day, and if David Johnson 6th round, I think David Johnson really to me, he is going to help. I do think like your Norvell when it comes to recruiting, like Norvell, Kenny Dillingham, and Adam Fuller versus Jimbo, James Coley, and Mark Stoops. Like that to me, that's a large gap. Like in terms of like charisma and dynamism and just kind of like I shouldn't say resume really because James Coley doesn't have a great one, but like James Coley just knew how to sell it. I mean, he just did.
Well, so did Craig. Yeah. Don't forget Craig. Man, that's the next step, and that's the biggest step is being able to get guys on this campus, get guys on this roster that can that are NFL talent.
Dudes,
yeah, you need some dudes. You need some single digit dudes.
Yeah.
You need some guys that are. And I wrote that column, and I'm talking now, Aslan, as if we're having a full 12-game season.
Look at you! I like it.
I'm all about it now. I'm talking about it. I just want to give people a little bit of hope. I'm just going to throw this out there from March 21st to March 25th, when we really started testing in this country and keeping track of testing in this country.
Wait, you mean April, March 20th?
Nope. I mean March 21st to March 25th.
Okay.
We tested a total of about 210,000 people in those 4 days. The last 4 days, we've tested over 1.2 million people. So we tripled total. So back then we were testing about whatever that would be, 50,000 people a day. Now we're testing close to 300,000 people a day.
Got to get that a little bit up though.
We're getting there. In 6 weeks or whatever that's been, whatever that time frame is, we've at least quadrupled our testing capacity or tripled it. So hopefully in another 6 weeks, we can at least double it. And if we're doubling it and testing 1 million people every 2 days, buddy, we're going to be back in Doak before you know it.
I like it.
Wearing masks and standing 6 feet apart, but we're going to be there, baby.
Can you believe Florida State was ranked number 18 going into the 2009 season? Based on what?
Yeah, the 08 season, they were pretty good.
This. Everybody loved it.
No, but if you look at the 08 season, they finish it off by thumping Wisconsin.
They all run together those years. Yeah, 42-13. That was a big win.
But they also, I think they won 9 games. Did they win 8 or 9 games that year?
9. They won 9 games that year?
They won 9 games. And remember, one of their losses was Little Sims fumbling into the end zone on what should have been the 10th. That would have been the 10th win of the season.
We were 16th in the nation going into that game.
Going into what game?
Georgia Tech.
Yeah, they would have been like 13th in the country if he holds on to the ball. And wasn't that a pretty good Georgia Tech team? Were they okay?
I can't. No, I'm not that agile. I can't pivot. Can't pivot that quickly.
You're the worst.
Whatever, man. I gave you Hall of Fame stats. I gave you the
You did, man. You came out of nowhere, especially with the Georgetown football Hall of Fame stats.
Yes. Luckily, all these schools got more Hall of Famers than Florida. Morgan State University, Michigan State's got more than Florida.
So is Florida just it's
Jackson
Emmett.
State gets some.
How many does Florida have? Don't tell me who, but tell me how many.
2.
So is it Emmett and Chris Collinsworth isn't in there? Wilbur Marshall?
Close.
Neil Anderson? I don't know. Who's the other one?
Come on.
Kerwin Bell?
No, he's on defense.
Oh, Reggie Nelson.
White linebacker? I think.
Culpepper's not one.
Jack Youngblood?
Oh, yeah. Was he a lot? Yeah. He played with the Rams, I think.
Was he Caucasian?
He was. You got that part right, yeah.
Okay. That's good. That's a strong name, man.
It's
Jack
a great man. Youngblood is just a perfect football name.
7 straight Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro, 201 consecutive games played.
Was he a lineman, though, or was he a linebacker?
Defensive end.
Yeah, okay. I thought he was a lineman. I thought he played with he was one of the Rams guys in the early 80s.
Fordham University, more Hall of Famers. Duke, more Hall of Famers. More Hall of Famers have gone through Compton Junior College than Florida at Gainesville. Arizona State, Arkansas. You guys are nothing. No tradition, no history.
Sure.
Yet carrying on like you're God's gift to athletics.
I mean, they've done pretty well, man. They're just,
the worst.
They're the number 3 in the state.
SMU, South Carolina State, Southern, Syracuse, TCU, Texas A&I. I didn't even know that place existed.
Texas
Tulsa.
A&I.
Tulsa.
Wow.
You guys are horrible.
Sorry, Florida. Sorry.
All right, we're done. Good job, Corey. Way to carry the day. We never really know
Hey, gave us something to talk about, right?
Yeah, that's all we care about, man. We made it over an hour. Wednesday, as usual, walk down memory lane, lace them up. Gene Williams, founder, administrator of Warchant.com, and Corey will be here. And you guys will be talking to?
Marvin Snoop Minnis.
About?
The 2000 Oklahoma game. No, I'm just kidding. That was the problem. The 1999 Florida game. He had basically the touchdown catch that iced it. And that kind of did carry him over into his All-American season in 2000. And I really did want to he would be great to talk about for the 2000 Florida game. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Where they beat him.
Is electric. That was the first time I ever came in Tallahassee was the 2000 Florida game. That was the first time I ever
so the recount was going on. So the Capitol was nuts anyway. Yeah. They were the whole BCS argument was going on between Miami and Florida State and who should get to play in the championship game. And Winky had like the flu or something, and they weren't sure if he was going to play, and then he comes out and throws for like 400 yards, and Minnis had a huge day that game. But then I was like, man, if we talked to him about that, then half of it has to be about the game that he – like the whole beauty of that game, the whole importance of that game was because it got him to the national championship game. Right. So it would be very bittersweet to talk to that guy about the huge game, and then you also have to bring up, oh, by the way, you didn't get to play.
Yeah.
What'd
you do the next 2 weeks there, Mark?
Yeah. Where did you watch the game from? So, but yeah, he was awesome. He's really good. He was really good talking about just that era of Florida State football and how, like, Randy Moss hosted him on his official visit. And so he was joining a team that he thought was going to have Randy Moss and Peter Warrick in there. Man. I mean, can you imagine? So, and it talked about waiting his turn, knowing that, there were too many good receivers, Lavernius Coles. Yeah. And I also didn't remember this, and I don't want to give away everything, but that they moved Lavernius Coles to wide receiver because Coles came in as a running back when Snoop got hurt in whatever year that would have been, 98, I guess. But that's when they moved him to receivers because Snoop got hurt that season. So, and that turned out being a good move for Lavernius.
All right. Check that out.
But, yeah, it's good. So go watch it. Obviously, listen to it. Love it.
It'll be there for you folks on Wednesday for your listening pleasure. Also,
one more thing.
Elite Eight. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Corey.
Promo that. Go ahead.
Elite Eight, Seminole, Madness, ranking, subjecting, voting on the best Florida State football player ever. We're down to 8 now, apparently. So vote. You can win a $25 e-card to Garden and Gold if you make the most compelling argument for your case for your player on the Tribal Council.
We got Charlie versus Jameis. Both played 2 years. Both won national championships. One guy lost 1 game in his career. The other guy lost 2. Both won Heismans.
Here's the thing: we could have had a 20-year window of Jameis versus Charlie beginning in 2015. We got a 20-year window. I think this is like the only 2-year window where Charlie Ward could win it, is if it happened now. I think if it would happen like 3 years ago.
Because you think of the NFL stuff.
Yes.
Man, I'm telling you, though, Jameis was awesome.
No. I mean, and Jameis was so – I think because we're getting more far removed from the college exploits too, is that –
yeah.
Because if Jameis has like a few good years here in the NFL, I think even if not, I mean, if you watch like the 92 Miami game, that was on ESPN Classic. Like, you watch that game versus like anything Jameis did, which I guess maybe isn't fair because that wasn't, it was Charlie's penultimate season, wasn't his ultimate season. What Jameis did in 13 was just unfreaking canny. But I guess 93 Charlie is kind of close there. But I don't know if the Notre Dame game counts against him or not.
No, but he didn't win it, so I guess it counts somewhat against him. But yeah, and then he overcame some lapses in that championship game against Nebraska. But lapses from the sideline and ended up winning that game. Oh, but what I was going to say was I just want to give a shout out, and now that I'm talking, I think his name was Harlan. He had a buddy of mine he happened to be hanging out with. He had a buddy of mine call and because he wanted to just tell me how big a fan he was of the show. So we have a mutual friend, I guess I should say. Okay. And the mutual friend called me because I think he had told him, like, hey, next time you talk to Corey, tell him that I'm a big fan of the show. And he's like, well, I'll just call him right now, and you can tell him. So he did. So I wanted to give a shout out to him, to Harlan. I think that's his name. If not, the person I did talk to, disregard this because I'm talking about somebody else.
Harlan Barnett?
Yeah. How about that? Can you believe it? Can you believe it? He misses our weekly 7-minute chats where we keep asking him just basically, what the hell was that? So now we get to do that again.
He's Corey Clark. I'm Aslan Giovanni. Thanks so much for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's. Indescribably good.
Some call them lunchtime lifesavers. Others call them the most perfect sandwiches to ever exist. At Zaxby's, we just call them our signature fan favorites. The Southern TLC Filet Sandwich has hand-breaded chicken with fresh tomato and crisp lettuce. The famous Kickin' Chicken Sandwich features spicy tongue torch and Cool Ranch sauces. And for a limited time, fried pickles are back. 2 classic sandwiches and a legendary appetizer. 3 more reasons you're going to get a kick out of Zaxby's.